3 weeks left. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of the podcast where you don't have to Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. I think I'm even going to miss Thursday Night Football a little bit. Grossi, and today we are going to be breaking down and predicting each game in Week 16. That's right, folks. 3 weeks left in the NFL regular season, and then the playoffs are upon us. Last week, I went a very respectable 13-3. That's the last time I picked the Carolina Panthers to win anything, making me have a record of 149-75 on the year. However, there are two individuals who have a much better record than I do, and that is Ryan McFadden with a 169-54 record, and Hurts Good again with a 169-55 record. A huge congrats to both of you. We'll see who can be atop the Pick'em League with only a few weeks left. Let's get it. Starting off with an AFC West showdown on the penultimate Thursday Night Football game. You got the Denver Broncos taking on the LA Chargers. And listen, I think this is going to be a good game, but I think the most disappointing thing is that either one of these teams theoretically could win their division if they weren't in the middle of a Chiefs dynasty.
I wish none of this had happened.
So do all who live to see such times, but that is not for them to decide.
The damn Chiefs. But the Broncos coming off with a big win against the Indianapolis Colts with some help from Jonathan Taylor, who was like, you know what? I don't need to bring the ball into the end zone. Who needs that? But the Broncos, their offense was a bit challenging this past Sunday. Bo Nix, you saw the good, you saw the bad, the lack of run game definitely being the bad, but the thing that makes the Broncos really great this season is the defense, right? That has been the standout part of that team. And heading into the game against the Chargers, who are looking to lick their wounds because, good God, they got their ass kicked by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Chargers, I've brought this up many times over the past few weeks, they are not the same team without J.K. Dobbins. Gustavus Edwards, again, held under 40 yards for the third week in a row. And while, again, the run game is like, okay, maybe it's passable, it is nowhere near where it was with J.K. Dobbins, and they become a very one-dimensional offense. Now, Ladd McConkey coming back definitely helps things here, and I think overall this is going to be a really fun game. I imagine it's going to probably be pretty low scoring. We'll see how the Broncos defense is going to be able to shut down guys like McConkey and Herbert, but at the same time, can that Broncos offense move the ball against a good Chargers defense, even though it wasn't very good on Sunday? And taking a look at this game, I think this is totally a coin flip. If the Broncos wind up winning, they punch their ticket to the postseason. The Chargers, they're still trying to hold on and punch their ticket to the playoffs as well. But right now, I am actually going to lean for the Denver Broncos to not only win, but get into the postseason because, boy, oh boy, it's been a while. And the reason why is because even though the Broncos don't really have a run game, they've been dealing with that all season. And I think that offense has been able to adapt. Bo Nix, again, can be hit or miss. But at the same time, the Broncos, they've been able to do pretty damn well, even without a solid running game. Meanwhile, the Chargers these past few weeks, they have not looked like the same team. If J.K. Dobbins was playing, I would give LA the edge. But here, I'm going to go with the Broncos to win, get into the postseason, and from there, hopefully set up a showdown with Russell Wilson and the Steelers. Following that, you got the first of 2 Saturday football games. You got the Houston Texans taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Texans, they won the AFC South this past weekend, knocking off the Miami Dolphins. And I feel like just the coverage of the Texans has really died down as the season has gone on. And I know the expectations for them were insanely high, and I still think they're a good football team, but that offense has not been as consistent as I know a lot of people anticipated. Yes, they've been injured. Yes, there's been O-line issues, but a bright spot from the Texans has been Joe Mixon, who has crushed it this season. And that defense on Sunday did a really nice job containing Tua and also causing some turnovers, though Tua didn't help that either. But overall, the Texans are in a great position. They didn't blow the AFC South and are now guaranteed at least one home playoff game. They're going to be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, who actually got more than a one-score victory this past Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. And their offense, of course, has not been looking that great. However, the news news here is that Hollywood Brown going to be coming back, and on top of that, Patrick Mahomes getting banged up in that game against the Browns, had a high ankle sprain, but of course, he is still going to be playing this Saturday against the Texans, because you could try to take out Mahomes, but he's only going to come back stronger. He's basically a Saiyan from DBZ. But ultimately, the Chiefs, this should be a really damn good game. I'm going to be really curious to see how CJ Stroud is going to navigate that Chiefs defense, which of course has been the strong suit of the Chiefs this year. Being played in Arrowhead, I think the Chiefs have a major advantage here. But the Chiefs have already wrapped up the division, gotten a playoff spot, but they're looking to maintain that number 1 seed heading into the postseason, guaranteeing that the road to the Super Bowl runs through Kansas City. And right now, if the Texans being a little wishy-washy on offense, I'm actually going to go with the Chiefs to get a win here. I think there's a good chance that the Texans defense is able to take advantage of Mahomes' injury, and especially if he's not too mobile. We know that the offensive line for the Chiefs have not been the best, especially at left tackle, but I do think the Chiefs at Arrowhead have a major advantage here. I think they're going to wind up knocking off the Strouds on Saturday, and the Chiefs get one step closer to getting back to the Super Bowl. Oh, yay. Then we got some AFC North football. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The Steelers, oof, that was a rough game against the Philadelphia Eagles this past Sunday. They never got the ball back. It seems like they didn't touch the ball at all in the second half, and huge kudos and shout out to the Eagles because they played a pretty damn good game. But the Steelers are still a very good football team, and as they head into the postseason, I'm very curious to see how they're going to look against some tougher competition. We see that they can go toe-to-toe with some of the better teams in the league, but you go up against a team like the Eagles, you do worry a little bit about that Steelers offense. Now, of course, TJ Watt getting injured this past Sunday, but he got some good news, so it looks like TJ Watt's injury is not as significant as was thought. However, they're going to have their hands full going up against the Baltimore Ravens, who had a big-time win over the New Jersey Giants, which I feel like everybody has a big win over the Giants at this point. But Lamar Jackson, 5 touchdowns, was absolutely phenomenal on Sunday. And I know a lot of people are talking about Josh Allen as their MVP, but Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, they're having a pretty damn good season as well. And I know that the Ravens defense is not so great and it hasn't been that consistent this year, but considering this is a divisional matchup and it's Steelers versus Ravens, you know how these games get.
The red sun rises. Blood has been spilled this night.
And the Steelers have beaten the Ravens 8 out of their last 9 matchups, which is pretty damn crazy. I talked about this the last time that they played, and the Steelers were kind of limping into this game, and I still picked the Steelers to win. And look, the Steelers got the W. Here, I'm going to do the same exact thing, and the reason being, even though it's being played in Baltimore, is the Steelers just know how to play the Ravens. I think this has been proven time and time again. We just mentioned the 8 out of the last 9, but if TJ Watt plays, and they're optimistic that he will, I think the Steelers should be able to pick up a win here. I imagine that high-flying offense of the Ravens might get grounded by the Steelers defense. The chance that I think the Ravens have is if TJ Watt is not good to go or he's obviously injured and not playing at 100%, then I think the Ravens, if they can establish the run against this defense and Lamar Jackson plays mistake-free football, the Baltimore Ravens can win this. However, it's tough for me to pick against the Steelers right now just because they have had Baltimore's number for quite some time. And on Saturday, I think they're going to call it again. Then another AFC North showdown. You got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. The Browns losing to the Chiefs on Sunday, benching Jameis Winston. DTR is officially going to get the start. And at this point, Browns fans are just watching a revolving door at QB and having to look at Baker Mayfield throw 4 touchdowns.
How dare you stand where he stood?
Browns fans will tell you, shouldn't have gotten rid of Baker. They're going to be taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who they are still alive in the playoff hunt. Joe Burrow is going to do everything he can to drag that defense over the finish line. And listen, it ain't over yet. I know that it wasn't the cleanest game this past Sunday, but they got a win. And maybe, just maybe, the Bengals could pull off a miracle and punch their ticket into the postseason. But first, they got to knock off the Cleveland Browns, who still have a pretty damn good defense. The Bengals defense, I don't believe in any shape or form. But with DTR starting, I think the Bengals, if they're able to get some pressure with Hendrickson, I think maybe that could tilt the game in their favor. On top of that, the Browns losing Chubb for the year, which is just heartbreaking as I love Nick Chubb. And I really just wanted to see him do well this season. We'll see what his future is going to be. But overall, the lack of run game starting DTR, I think the Bengals, even even with their not so great defense, should be able to pick up this win. It is a must-win game for Cincinnati as their playoffs have started already. And so because of that, I'm going to have the kitty go meow this Sunday, and we'll see if Joe Burrow can pull off a miracle. Then you got the New Jersey Giants taking on the Atlanta Falcons. The Giants taking on the Falcons, who are benching Kirk Cousins, and they are going to be starting Michael Penix, which got everybody in Atlanta saying, it's Penix time.
It is time.
Is anybody saying that? If not, they should. Listen, the Falcons, oh boy, they won this past Monday against the Raiders in an ugly game, and the Raiders had an opportunity to still win that game at the end. And that Falcons offense for the past month has looked abysmal. Cousins finally getting benched last night, and honestly, it's the right move, even though they paid him a ton of money in the offseason, which is not so great. We're going to get a good look at Michael Penix. And honestly, for a rookie QB, the Giants might be the best team for them to start at. And being played in Atlanta, I think the Falcons have a nice advantage here. And again, this just speaks to how bad the Giants are this year. That D-line was the one bright spot there, but they're just not a good football team. And I think Atlanta has enough talent on that squad that they should be able to knock off the Giants again at home. And even though you have a rookie QB in his first start, that's how little I believe in the Giants. So because of that, I'm going with Atlanta to get the W here, and maybe, just maybe, optimism and hope can return to Atlanta. Following that, you got an NFC North showdown between the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. The Lions, oh boy, they lost on Sunday, and I ain't just talking about that game. Not only did Josh Allen decimate them, score 48 points on this Lions defense, but injury after injury, losing guys on the defense, losing David Montgomery, and the Lions are a beat-up football team right now. They're going up against the Chicago Bears, who they just lost their 8th straight game.
Oh no! We suck again!
Not great, Bob. The Bears looked pretty pitiful against the Minnesota Vikings, and that game was shockingly close, at least for that first half, but things really got away from them. Caleb Williams is not doing well. That offensive line is just egregious to the eyes, and this game being played in Chicago, I actually think it's going to be a pretty damn close game. The Lions are a very good football team. They went toe-to-toe with the Buffalo Bills, even with all those injuries, but being played outside in December at Soldier Field, I would not be surprised if this is a low-scoring game or the Bears keep it really darn close. The problem is that even though the Lions are decimated, I still do not believe in the Chicago Bears because they are that bad of a football team right now. Their offense looks terrible. If they can't establish the run against this Lions defensive line, they are going to be in for a rough time. And even though the pass rush of the Lions is basically non-existent at this point, they should even still be able to get after Caleb Williams because that offensive line is basically a revolving door. So because of that, I am going to go with the Lions to get a win. However, I do have a caveat here. I do think this is going to be a closer game than some people anticipate. It's a divisional game. It went down to the wire last time, and being played in Chicago, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears put up a bit of a fight here, but I don't think it's going to be enough to knock off the Lions. And so because of that, Detroit gets the win. Following that, you got an AFC South showdown between the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. The Titans, they are going through it this year. Will Levis gets benched through 3 interceptions, had a fumble, got sacked on top of it, and it's just been a rough season. And for the Titans, they got to figure out what the hell they're going to do in the offseason because they have a lot of work to do, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Speaking of, let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts, who were going to take a 2-touchdown lead against the Denver Broncos, but then Jonathan Taylor said, nay, and gave the game away.
Assert yourself!
That's my ice cream cone.
Great! Now let him have it!
You can have it. Say thanks.
Oh, I'm sure Colts fans are taking that very well. But Indianapolis has just been an inconsistent team this year. Whether it's been Anthony Richardson and his accuracy, again, having that potential, and there's definitely the shades of what could be with Anthony Richardson, or the lack of run game if Jonathan Taylor is not feeling great. The Colts really just haven't met expectations this year. And while there's still some hope that they could get a wild card spot, they lost the division to the Texans, which is a pretty big blow. And looking at this game, I think the Colts should be able to get a win, but I don't think they're going to be able to make the postseason this year. So I'm going to have Indianapolis beat up on an already beaten up Tennessee Titans team. I think they should be able to get the win with no issues. But at the end of the day, it's too little too late, in my opinion, for the Colts. We'll see what they do in the offseason. But as of right now, at least you get the W. Then you got an old rematch between Matthew Stafford and Aaron Rodgers as the LA Rams take on the New Jersey Jets. The Rams didn't even need to score a touchdown to beat the San Francisco 49ers after scoring all the touchdowns against the Bills that past Sunday. And the Rams are in a fantastic spot heading into the postseason because they are sitting atop the NFC West. They are in control of their own fate, and they got a couple of big games coming up after this Jets game with the Cardinals and finishing the season against the Seattle Seahawks. And for the Rams right now, if Matthew Stafford is able to play as well as he can, and with a healthy Puka and Cooper Kupp, that offense is going to be tough to stop. And speaking of disappointment, let's talk about the New Jersey Jets, because good God, that has been the theme of their entire season/existence. But I will say, that Rodgers to Adams connection this past Sunday, that was looking pretty beautiful.
Just like old times.
Just like old times.
Yeah.
The Jets got to have a little bit of a reprieve from doom and gloom and drones because they were able to get a big-time win against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think it's much of an achievement to beat up Mac Jones and the Jaguars this season, but hey, every little bit counts. And heading into this game being played at MetLife, I wonder if this is going to slow down Matthew Stafford and that offense. But the Jets defense is a shell of its former self. It is nowhere near what we thought it was going to be this year. And the Rams, as I've been mentioning, they are vying for a playoff spot while the Jets have already been eliminated. I'm going to pick the Rams to get a win here. I think even if that weather slows down that offense a little bit, I just have no faith in the Jets right now on either side of the ball. And while it was very nice to see Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams do well on Sunday, I don't know if they can replicate that again against the Rams. And if Jared Verse is able to put pressure on Aaron Rodgers, it might be a very long day for Aaron. So because of that, I'm going with the Rams to get a big time win here, setting their sights on the playoffs, and we'll see if Stafford and company can punch their ticket. Then, this is going to be a good one. You got the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Washington Commanders. The Eagles coming away with a big-time win in the battle for Pennsylvania against the Pittsburgh Steelers this past Sunday, and boy, oh boy, did they look good. And I'd like to think that Jalen Hurts shut up a lot of critics this past Sunday. I know there's been a lot of controversy about A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts and talking about how Jalen Hurts has been playing, but he played a really damn good game this past Sunday. And the best part is, and I mentioned this in Power Rankings, they didn't have to rely on Saquon Barkley. That last drive was a work of art. Not only converting it on fourth down, but being able to take almost 10 and a half minutes off that game clock. Absolutely incredible job by that Eagles offense. And of course, their defense has been superb. They're going to be taking on the Washington Commanders, who Commanders fans may have noticed something wasn't right with that game clock there at the end against the Saints.
10, 9, 8, 8, 8.
But thankfully, they were able to defend the 2-point conversion attempt, getting a big-time win. And the Commanders, they've won a lot of games this year. I think they've definitely been overachieving, especially with that defense and that offensive line. But Jaden Daniels, he's been having a really nice season. I think he's one of the front runners for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And the Commanders have a really good shot to still make the postseason. These games are always really, really close between the Eagles and Commanders. And I know it drives Eagles fans crazy, which just makes this for an even better game. And the Commanders, they have a lot riding on the line here. The Eagles haven't clinched their division yet, though they have clinched a playoff spot. And the only thing that's stopping them right now is the Washington Commanders. Being played in DC, I'd like to give the Commanders an edge here. However, I just can't pick against the Eagles right now. I think they're playing great football on both sides of the ball. Their defense is dominant. Their offense can beat you in a multitude of ways. And if they're able to establish the run against a not so great defense with the Commanders, I think the Eagles should be able to pull this one off. Again, a divisional game, things can get wonky, but I'm going to go with Philadelphia to get the win. I'm so sorry, Wildflower. Then you got the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Carolina Panthers. The Cardinals, their playoff hopes and division hopes are still alive. After having a couple disappointing weeks, they came roaring back this past Sunday. Trey McBride, James Conner playing fantastically well. Again, going up against the Patriots, not a whole lot to be happy about, but hey, a win is a win, and they're still alive. They're going to be taking on the Carolina Panthers, and it's a battle of the mini QBs.
Short kings like us should be proud of our heritage, you know?
The Panthers, oh boy, I was hyping up Bryce Young for this past month, and of course, when I pick them to win, they crapped the bed against the Dallas Cowboys. Not having a great game. Bryce Young's worst game in the past couple of weeks, and that offense just did not look good. And I know the Carolina offense isn't really something that was expected to be super good. Brooks getting hurt again definitely doesn't help things, but I had a little bit of optimism that maybe they could have knocked off the Cowboys. I was obviously wrong. Looking at this game, of course, the Panthers, they have no playoff shot. Looking at this game, I gotta go with the Cardinals to get a win here. They're fighting for their playoff lives and could still win the NFC West. And I think that if Kyler Murray is able to put together a clean game and they can establish the run with James Conner, they should be able to get the W against the Panthers here. And so because of that, Kyler, you get the win. And maybe, just maybe, the Cardinals can pull off a miracle and make the postseason. Then, can they both lose? You got the purple incarnation of Satan, the Minnesota Vikings, taking on the Seattle Seahawks. The Vikings have punched their ticket to the postseason.
Hey, I just got my license.
Hey, I'm getting mine next.
Hey, I doubt it.
You're welcome. They knocked off the Chicago Bears on Monday night, but they already clinched a playoff spot after the Packers win over the Seahawks. And now the Vikings get to play the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. And for the Vikings, expectations were not super duper high for them this year, but oh boy, they blew those out of the water. And I gotta give them a ton of respect here. Having a 12-2 record is not easy to do. Sam Darnold didn't look perfect on Monday night, but also had some good throws. The defense has been playing well. That run game with Aaron Jones, we know he has been fine. And heading into Seattle, the Seahawks are also fighting for their playoff lives. A huge loss against the Packers this past Sunday definitely did not make things easier, but they're still contending for that NFC West title. The bad news is that Geno Smith got banged up in that Packers game. However, there is optimism that he's going to be able to play against Minnesota, and they are going to need him because after Sam Howell came in that game, woof, that did not go well. And I think what's going to determine who wins this game is who is going to be able to establish the run. The Seahawks here, if they're able to establish the run, they're going to have more of a balanced attack. And considering how bad their offensive line is, they're going to need Zach Charbonnet to have himself a really good game. And besides this past Sunday, the Seahawks defense has been playing pretty damn well. On the other hand, though, the Vikings defense, they've been pretty damn good this season. And if the Packers pass rush, which has improved the past couple weeks, can get 7 sacks against the Seahawks, I can only imagine what the Vikings defense can do. And so with Geno Smith not at 100%, I'm going to go with the Vikings here to continue their upward momentum, getting 13 wins on the season, which is just... But I'm going to get Satan having the win here. They're going to be playing the Packers for the second time this season next week, and then evil will be vanquished from the world. But for now, Satan wins. Following that, an AFC East showdown between the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. Oh, they're showing this on TV? It's going to be a snuff film. The Patriots losing to the Cardinals this past week. And again, Drake May, he looks like he is the guy. As long as they build around him and build up that offense, they should be fine. I know there's a lot of talk about Mayo and his head coaching tenure, and maybe they bring in someone else. But the most important thing, Patriots fans, is it seems like you found your quarterback. And as long as he's going to continue to improve and develop, you're going to be in a good spot. They're going to be taking on the Buffalo Bills, who they already clinched the division, and I can't imagine they're going to be too worried about New England here.
Yeah, it'll be like taking candy from a baby.
Well, you never know with those divisional games. But the Bills coming off one of their biggest wins of the season, knocking off the Detroit Lions. And I know there's some concerns from Bills fans about that defense because Jared Goff had nearly 500 yards of offense. But at the end of the day, the Bills won. And there are not too many teams that can put up those type of points in the AFC. You look at a team like maybe the Bengals, the Ravens, and if it's the right day, I don't see the Chiefs putting up 48 points. And so for right now, the Bills, they're looking pretty damn good. Being played at home and with the Patriots just being who they are this season, I think the Bills should be able to have a pretty easy win against New England this week. Again, you never know because things get crazy with divisional games, but I'm going to go with Buffalo here, continuing their quest to try and clinch that number 1 seed. I know there'll be big Houston Texans fans this Saturday, but here I got the Bills winning, and Patriots, it's almost over. Then, oh God, you got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Vegas Raiders. No, the Jaguars, they lost against the Jets. That's how you know things are going poorly. Trevor Lawrence, he just had surgery. Ingram just had surgery. And the Jaguars, they're just waiting for this season to end. Meanwhile, they're going up against the Raiders, who were this close to ending their losing streak.
Just once. Please, oh, please let me win one time.
But the good news is that you're not trying to win because you got a draft to pick number 1 at. The Raiders losing to the Falcons this past Monday night, almost pulling off a Hail Mary attempt at the very end. But listen, the Raiders, they are not a good team. They got Desmond Ridder right now, and it doesn't really matter who they have at quarterback this season because that offense needs a lot of help. Besides you, Brock Bowers, you're fantastic, and also Jacoby Myers is pretty good too. But this defense without Max Crosby, again, is a shell of itself. I had high expectations for the Raiders defense this year, and they have just disappointed me and their fans. And so this game, good God, this is not going to be fun. I can't imagine this is going to be a very high-scoring affair. Both offenses are not good. Both defenses are not great. I am going to go with the Jaguars to get the win here because at least they look somewhat competent. And like I said, the Raiders, their best thing would be if they lose and they get a higher draft pick. So guess what? You get what you want. Just tank, baby. Jaguars win. Then you got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Miami Dolphins. Both these teams having some heartbreaking losses this past week. The 49ers unable to score a single touchdown against the LA Rams. And for the 49ers, it has just been a disappointing season. They got players walking out. They got injuries piling up. And that team has just not looked great after appearing in the Super Bowl just this past February. They're taking on the Miami Dolphins, who had to play another team with a winning record in December. So
I just can't do it, Captain. I don't have the power.
That didn't go so well. Tua did not look good this past Sunday, and usually I'll be defending Tua because I think he gets way overhated on the internet, but it was just not a great game for him. You have Tyreek Hill saying, "I gotta go, coach," and tweeting out cryptic things, which is not going to help anybody. And for the Dolphins, overall, it's just going to be a disappointing season. So you basically have a battle between two disappointing teams this year who both had playoff hopes, and unfortunately for the both of them, they are not going to make it. Though fortunately for the Packers, because then they don't have to worry about the 49ers beating them in the postseason. And taking a look at this game, I'm going to go with the Dolphins to get the win here. It's being played in Miami. I'm going to give them a slight edge here. I don't think Tua is going to have as bad of a game as he did against Houston. And if that offense is able to hum along a little bit, they should be able to stop the 49ers, who, like I said, they've been disappointing all year. So Dolphins, you get the win here. It's too little too late, but hey, moral victories are kind of a thing. Dolphins win. Then on Sunday Night Football, you got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking on the Dallas Cowboys. The Buccaneers, whew, Baker keeps on baking up some wins.
Give me two more. Give me two more. They're good. Give me two more.
4 touchdowns against the LA Chargers this past Sunday. Bucky Irving looking good. Mike Evans, 2 touchdowns, still trying to get that 1,000-yard season, and oh boy, I hope he hits it. And the Buccaneers are in firm control of that NFC South division. The Saints aren't a problem, the Panthers aren't a problem, and the Falcons, they're the Falcons right now. They're going to be taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who are all in this season, and yeah, I am all out of patience having to see them in primetime. The Cowboys, they keep on winning games, which is hysterical because not only does it hurt their draft pick, but maybe Mike McCarthy will stick around and get a contract extension after this year, which I know Cowboys fans would be absolutely thrilled to have Big Mike back in Dallas. Their defense has not lived up to expectations. Mike Zimmer has not done a great job with that unit. On top of that, the Cowboys offense without Dak Prescott is pretty damn anemic. It wasn't that great when they had him this season, but I will say one of the bright spots of the Cowboys since Thanksgiving has been Rico Dowdle. He's been running the ball really, really effectively, and if they're able to establish the run against the Buccaneers, maybe Cooper Rush has himself a pretty darn good game. However, I can't pick against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. They have a ton of momentum. Baker is playing well, and if they establish that run game against this Dallas defense, I think the Buccaneers should be able to get a pretty easy win on Sunday night. So because of that, I'm going with Baker, I'm going with the Bucs, and maybe we'll see you in the playoffs. Then you got the New Orleans Saints taking on the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. The Saints, yeah, things aren't going well for the Saints. Alvin Kamara got banged up. Their QBs are a mess right now. You got Spencer Rattler, who at least was able to lead a touchdown drive against the Commanders. They went for 2 there, which honestly makes the most sense in the world because what else do you have to lose? But failing to get the 2-point conversion and ultimately losing that game, we'll see what Spencer Rattler has this upcoming Monday night. They're going to be taking on the Packers, who, don't look now, just defeated the Seattle Seahawks on the road road, and Jordan Love now has 4 straight games without a turnover. And now we just got to hope that devil on his shoulder doesn't return for the playoffs.
Don't listen to that guy. He's trying to lead you down the path of righteousness. I'm going to lead you down the path that rocks.
But the Packers are in a great position here because it's win and in for them. Yes, the division is probably out of reach and they're not going to be able to get a number 1 seed or anything, but the Packers are still vying for seeding here. And considering how well that defense has been playing, even without Jair Alexander, Edgerrin Cooper coming back and having a huge impact in that game against Seattle just completely changes the entire complexion of that defense. We'll see if Jair is ready to go, though. If I'm the Packers, I'm sitting him still because I am not fearing Spencer Rattler a ton right now. And that's just the defense. Talking about the offense, we talk about Jordan Love and how well he's been playing over this 4-game stretch, but Josh Jacobs has been a phenomenal addition for the Green Bay Packers this year. Over 1,000 rushing yards, double-digit touchdowns, and is really helping that balanced offensive attack. I mean, looking at that Seahawks opening drive, dude, it was all Josh Jacobs, and eventually he just punched it in for a touchdown. The Packers, I think, are going to be far gone favorites here. They should be able to get a win on Monday night in Lambeau. Who knows? Maybe there'll be some snowy weather and we'll just get a picture-perfect football game. But here, I'm going to pick the Packers to punch their ticket into the postseason, knock off the Saints, and get one step closer to going to New Orleans, which I know is confusing because they're playing the Saints this year and they're at home, but the Super Bowl's in you get it. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Who do you got winning and losing this week? We only got a few games left, folks. Buckle up. The postseason is almost upon us. But let me know. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com or Tom Grossi Comedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack, go.